The transport ship carrying Emperor Vecthos arrived at Earth 3 weeks after his capture. News crews from every human world gathered at the landing site. Billions watched on screens as the former ruler of the Vecthari Empire was led down the ramp in restraints, his royal robes replaced by a simple prisoner's uniform. He no longer looked like an emperor. He looked like what he was, a war criminal awaiting judgment. The Terran Council had debated where to hold the trial. Some wanted it on Earth. Others suggested New Haven's ruins as a symbolic location. In the end, they chose Unity 7, a massive space station in neutral territory. The decision was strategic. Humanity wanted the entire galaxy to witness what happened when you committed genocide. Ambassador Hyeji took personal charge of organizing the tribunal. She worked 18-hour days, reviewing evidence, preparing witnesses, ensuring every detail was perfect. This trial would set a precedent. It had to be done right. Will you be able to remain objective? President Soman asked her during a private meeting. Given that your sister, my sister and nieces died at New Haven, Hyeji finished quietly. I know, but that's exactly why I'm the right person to prosecute this case. I will never forget what was taken from us. I will make sure nobody else forgets either. Unity 7 had been a commercial trading hub before the war. Now it transformed into a courtroom. Engineers built viewing galleries that could hold thousands. Communication arrays were installed to broadcast the proceedings across every inhabited system. Security forces from a dozen species arrived to maintain order, though human marines made up the bulk of the protective detail. The trial began on a cold morning, Earth time. The gallery filled with observers. Humans who had lost loved ones at New Haven sat in the front rows, their faces carved from stone. Behind them, diplomats and journalists from 40 alien species watched with intense interest. The entire civilized galaxy waited to see how humanity would conduct this unprecedented trial. 3 judges presided, all human but selected for their reputation for fairness. Admiral Tajin had wanted military justice. President Soman had insisted on civilian oversight. The compromise was a mixed tribunal that included both military and civilian legal experts. Overseen by Supreme Justice Hanul, Emperor Vecthos was led into the courtroom and placed in a reinforced prisoner's dock. He looked straight ahead, his alien face unreadable. If he felt fear or regret, he showed no sign of it. Justice Hanul called the court to order. The massive chamber fell silent. Emperor Vecthos of the Vecthari Empire, you stand accused of genocide against the human colony of New Haven. You are accused of ordering the murder of 15,000 innocent civilians, including 4,000 children. You are accused of crimes against sentient species and violations of every civilized law of warfare. How do you plead? Vecthos remained silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. Not guilty. I ordered necessary military action against an illegal settlement in Vecthari territory. If humans died, it was their own fault for trespassing. A ripple of anger ran through the gallery. Justice Hanul brought down her gavel. Order. The defendant has entered a plea. Ambassador Hyeji, present your case. Hyeji stood and approached the central platform. She wore formal diplomatic attire, every detail perfect. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 15,000 ghosts. New Haven colony existed for 12 years. In that time, the Vecthari Empire never filed a single territorial claim, never sent a single diplomatic protest, never even acknowledged the colony's existence through proper channels. Then, without warning, without negotiation, without mercy, they attacked. She activated a holographic display. Myung's transmission began to play. The tribunal watched in silence as New Haven died. They watched the orbital bombardment. They watched civilians running. They watched children burning. They watched Vecthari soldiers executing survivors. The footage ran for 18 minutes that felt like 18 hours. When it ended, several observers were weeping openly. Others sat in stunned silence. Even some of the alien diplomats looked disturbed. Vecthos alone showed no reaction. The prosecution calls its first witness, Hyeji said. Sergeant Junho, sole survivor of New Haven. Junho walked to the witness stand, his military uniform pressed and perfect. He had testified before, but never like this. Never with the whole galaxy watching. He placed his hand on the oath terminal and swore to tell the truth. Hyeji guided him through his testimony gently, but thoroughly. Junho described the harvest festival that morning. The music and dancing. His wife's smile. his children's laughter. Then the sky turning dark, the fire falling. The screams. How long did the bombardment last? Hyeji asked. 6 hours, Junho answered, his voice steady but his eyes haunted. They kept firing even after everything was destroyed. Even after everyone was dead. What happened after the bombardment? Ground troops landed. Vekthari soldiers searched the ruins and killed any survivors they found. I watched from a bunker. I heard them. They were laughing. Did they make any attempt to accept surrender? To take prisoners? No, they just killed everyone. Hyeji let that answer hang in the air for a moment. Thank you, Sergeant. No further questions. Vekthos' defense attorney, a human lawyer who had agreed to represent him only after being ordered by the Terran Council, declined to cross-examine. What question could he possibly ask? The prosecution called witness after witness, engineers who analyzed the attack patterns and confirmed they were designed for maximum casualties, not military objectives. Medical examiners who had identified bodies from the ruins and testified about how they died. Communications experts who translated Vekthari military chatter recorded during the assault, revealing that soldiers had been given explicit orders to eliminate all targets, with no mention of accepting surrender. Commander Yunji testified about the intelligence her team had gathered. The Vekthari High Command planned this operation for 3 months. They knew exactly how many people lived on New Haven. They knew they were children. They knew it was a civilian colony with no military defenses. They attacked anyway. Why? Hyeji asked. According to intercepted communications, Emperor Vekthos wanted to send a message to humanity. He wanted to demonstrate Vekthari power and intimidate other species from settling near his borders. So this was not about territory. This was about terror. Yes. Each day brought new evidence, new testimony, new horrors. The galaxy watched it all. Some species that had previously remained neutral began issuing statements condemning the massacre. Others quietly moved their embassies away from Vekthari space. The trial was not just prosecuting one emperor. It was prosecuting an entire philosophy of conquest and cruelty. Finally, after 2 weeks of prosecution testimony, Hyeji approached the bench. The prosecution rests. We have proven beyond any doubt that Emperor Vekthos ordered and oversaw the deliberate, systematic genocide of New Haven Colony. We have proven this was not a military action but mass murder. We have proven he showed no mercy and accepted no surrender. The evidence speaks for itself. The defense attorney stood reluctantly. He had almost no case to present. The evidence was overwhelming, but he had to try. Emperor Vekthos believed he was defending Vekthari territory. His culture values strength and conquest. While his methods may seem harsh to humans, they were consistent with Vekthari military tradition. Justice Hanel fixed him with a cold stare. Are you seriously arguing that cultural differences excuse genocide? I'm arguing that Emperor Vekthos acted according to his own society's values. Then his society's values are barbaric and criminal. She turned to Vekthos. Does the defendant wish to make a statement before we deliberate? Vekthos stood. For the first time since the trial began, emotion showed on his alien features. It was not regret. It was contempt. You humans are weak, he said. You value mercy and compassion like they are virtues. They are not. They are weaknesses. The strong take what they want. The weak die. This is the way of the universe. New Haven was weak. I did what any true leader would do. He looked around the courtroom, his gaze sweeping across the silent observers. I regret nothing. If given the chance, I would do it again. You are all inferior species pretending to be civilized. One day, someone stronger than you will come and you will learn the same lesson I tried to teach. The only law that matters is power. Silence filled the chamber. Then Hyeji stood. Thank you, Emperor Vekthos. You have just proven exactly why this trial was necessary. You represent everything civilized species reject. You represent the belief that might makes right, that cruelty is strength, that innocent lives mean nothing. New Haven died because of that belief. But New Haven's death was not meaningless. It taught the galaxy what happens when evil goes unchecked. She turned to face the gallery, her voice rising. Let this trial be a message to every species, every empire, every ruler who thinks power excuses atrocity. It does not. It never has. It never will. We are better than that. We must be better than that. Because if we accept that strength alone determines right and wrong, then we accept that New Haven deserved to die, and I will never accept that. The judges deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, Justice Hanul's expression was grave. Emperor Vectos, this tribunal finds you guilty of genocide, guilty of crimes against sentient species. They were just humans. Junho's finger tightened on the trigger. Every fiber of his Emperor Vectos ran. For the first time in his long reign, the mighty ruler of the Vecthari Empire felt true fear. His dreadnought jumped from system to system, desperately seeking refuge. Behind him, his empire burned. Ahead, only uncertainty waited. He sent urgent messages to his vassal states demanding sanctuary. The responses came slowly, each one more disappointing than the last. The Dracorian hegemony politely declined, citing treaty complications. The Floxian collective simply did not respond. The smaller species he had bullied for decades now ignored his calls. Word had spread quickly through the galaxy. Humanity was hunting the Emperor and nobody wanted to be caught harboring him. On Earth, Admiral Tejan assigned a special task force to track Vectos. The stealth frigate Silent Vengeance received the honor. Its crew was handpicked, each member having lost someone at New Haven. Junho volunteered immediately and was accepted without question. Mina came with him, along with 3 others from their Marine unit. The Silent Vengeance was built for exactly this kind of mission. Its hull absorbed sensor scans. Its engines left minimal traces. It could follow a target across half the galaxy without being detected. Commander Daehyun, the ship's captain, was a veteran hunter who had tracked pirates through the Outer Rim for 15 years. Our mission is simple, Daehyun told his crew as they departed Earth. Find the Emperor. Capture him alive. Bring him back to stand trial. Ambassador Hyeji has specifically requested this. She wants the galaxy to watch him answer for New Haven. What if he won't surrender? Mina asked. Daehyun's expression hardened. Then we make him. The hunt began at the Kelmar Nebula where Vectos had fled. Commander Yunji's intelligence network provided their first lead. An informant had seen the Emperor's dreadnought refueling at a hidden supply depot in the Corvin system, 2 jumps away. The Silent Vengeance arrived to find the depot abandoned and the Emperor long gone, but forensic scanners picked up drive signatures. He's heading toward the Meridian Point trading station, their sensor officer reported. It's neutral territory. Probably thinks he's safe there. The Silent Vengeance jumped immediately. They arrived at Meridian Point 3 hours later, and Junho's team went in quietly dressed as traders. The massive station housed thousands of beings from hundreds of species. Finding one Vecthari should have been nearly impossible, but Junho had learned to hunt. He and Mina split up, asking careful questions and watching for reactions. A Kethran merchant nervously mentioned seeing important Vecthari in the premium docking area. A dock worker remembered loading unusual amounts of supplies onto a private ship just an hour ago. Junho ran for the docking bays with Mina close behind. They arrived just in time to see a luxury yacht detach from its moorings. The ship was sleek and fast, designed for a wealthy owner. Through the viewport, Junho caught a glimpse of a large figure in royal robes. That's him, Junho said into his communicator. Bay 17, heading for the jump point. The Silent Vengeance emerged from its hiding spot and pursued, but Vectos' yacht was faster than expected. It jumped away before they could lock a tractor beam. Daehyun slammed his fist on the armrest but kept his voice calm. Track his jump vector. We're not losing him. They followed the Emperor to Helix 7, an ice world on the edge of civilized space. The planet had no permanent settlements, just automated mining stations and research outposts. Perfect for someone trying to hide. The Silent Vengeance deployed Junho's team in an armed shuttle, dropping them near thermal signatures that indicated recent habitation. The ice world was brutal. Wind screamed across frozen plains and temperatures dropped to deadly levels. Junho's team moved carefully through the blizzard, following scanner readings toward a small research facility. Lights glowed in its windows. Someone was inside. They breached the outer airlock silently. Inside, warmth and artificial light greeted them. The facility appeared abandoned, but fresh supplies sat in the kitchen and power cells had been recently replaced. Someone was definitely here. Spread out, Mina ordered. Stay alert. Junho moved down a corridor, rifle ready. He entered what looked like a laboratory and froze. 3 Vecthari soldiers stood waiting for him, weapons raised. He dove behind a workbench as plasma fire scorched the air where he had been standing. Gunfire erupted throughout the facility. The Emperor had left guards behind to delay pursuit. Junho returned fire, his shots precise despite the adrenaline flooding his system. 1 Vecthari went down. Another ducked behind cover. The third threw a grenade that forced Junho to run. The grenade exploded, destroying half the laboratory. Junho rolled to his feet and found himself facing the largest Vectari he had ever seen. The alien warrior wore heavy combat armor and carried a weapon that looked like it could punch through walls. He raised it toward Junho. A plasma bolt struck the Vectari from behind. Mina had entered through a side door, her rifle still smoking. The alien warrior staggered but did not fall. He turned toward Mina and she fired again. This time he dropped. "You okay?" she asked Junho. "Yeah, thanks. Don't mention it." She helped him up. 3 more down in the command center. That's all of them. The Emperor, gone, left them behind to buy time. Sang-hoon found fresh shuttle tracks leading north. He's heading for a hidden spaceport. They contacted the Silent Vengeance and gave chase, but Vecthos had planned well. By the time they reached the northern spaceport, his yacht was already climbing toward orbit. Honjo watched it disappear into the stars and felt frustration burn in his chest. "We'll get him," Mina said quietly. "He's running out of places to hide." She was right. Each time Vecthos fled, he found fewer allies willing to shelter him. The galaxy was closing its doors to the architect of genocide. Species that had once feared the Vectari Empire now feared humanity's anger more. Nobody wanted to be the next target of Earth's vengeance. The chase continued across 5 star systems. At each location they arrived to find the Emperor had just departed. But they were getting closer. The time gap shortened. Hours became minutes. Vecthos was getting desperate, making mistakes. Then Commander Yunji delivered the intelligence they needed. The Emperor was heading home to Vecthar Prime, his throne world. He believed his planetary defenses would protect him. He believed humanity would not dare assault his homeworld. He was wrong about everything. Admiral Taijin received the intelligence and immediately began planning the largest military operation since the war began. Vecthar Prime was the most heavily defended planet in the Empire. Orbital defense platforms ringed the world. Fighter stations dotted its moons. Thousands of troops garrisoned the surface. Taking it would require everything humanity could bring to bear. President Soman authorized the operation without hesitation. Bring him home for trial, whatever it takes. The entire Terran war fleet assembled for the assault. Every ship that could fly, every weapon that could fire, converged on Vecthar Prime. They emerged from jump space in a massive formation that blotted out the stars. Vectari defenders activated their weapons and prepared to sell their lives dearly. The battle for Vecthar Prime was the most brutal engagement of the war. The orbital defenses were impressive and well designed. They destroyed 20 human ships in the first hour of fighting. But humanity had learned from every previous battle. They had studied Vectari tactics, identified weaknesses, and developed counters. Human bombers made suicide runs against the defense platforms, their pilots ejecting at the last second while their ships exploded against shields. Each explosion weakened the defenses slightly. After 2 hours of constant attacks, cracks began to appear. After 4 hours, entire sections of the defense network went offline. The planetary shields, considered unbreakable by Vectari engineers, fell in 6 hours. Human Marines cheered as the massive energy barriers flickered and died. Below them, Vecthar Prime lay exposed. "All forces, this is Admiral Taijin. The door's open. Go get our justice." Junho sat in an assault pod with 40 other Marines, feeling the vibration as their carrier descended through atmosphere. They were heading for the capital city, for the Emperor's palace itself. Around them, hundreds of other pods dropped like deadly rain. 2 minutes, the pilot announced. "Anti-air fire is heavy. Hold on." The pod shook violently as point defense weapons tried to shoot it down. Junho gripped his rifle and thought about New Haven, about children who had been dancing in a plaza, about Myung, who had died making sure Earth knew what happened, about 15,000 people who deserved better than to be forgotten. The pod slammed into the ground outside the palace. Doors blew off and Marines poured out into a war zone. Vectari soldiers had fortified the palace approaches and were fighting desperately. Plasma fire and explosions filled the air. Buildings burned around them. Junho's team moved through the chaos with practiced efficiency. They had fought together for months now, had learned to read each other's movements. Mina took point, her rifle barking steadily. Yunho covered the right flank. Sang-hoon, their demolitions expert despite his injuries from earlier battles, took out a machine gun nest with a well-placed charge. They fought their way to the palace gates, then through the gates, then into the massive structure itself. The Emperor's guards made them pay for every meter, but nothing could stop the advancing hue. The Vecthari military station Omega-7 controlled the Northern Defense Fleet. It housed 3,000 soldiers, dozens of command staff, and enough firepower to defend an entire system. The station's commander was drinking his morning stimulant when reality split open, and the Terran First Fleet emerged from jump space. 100 human warships appeared in perfect formation. Already moving at attack speed, the Vecthari commander dropped his cup and lunged for the alarm, but he was far too slow. The humans had not come to talk. The Indomitable fired first. Its main railgun launched a tungsten projectile at a fraction of light speed. The round punched through Omega-7's armor like paper, detonated inside the reactor core, and turned the entire station into a miniature sun. 3,000 Vecthari died before they knew they were under attack. The explosion lit up the dark between stars. Admiral Tajin watched from his command chair without expression. Target destroyed. Move to secondary objectives. All wings weapons free. The First Fleet split into attack groups and descended on the 3 Vecthari battleships guarding the sector. The enemy ships tried to fight back, but they had been caught completely unprepared. Human missiles swarmed their defenses while fighter squadrons strafed their engines. Within 12 minutes, all 3 battleships were drifting wrecks. Across Vecthari space, the same scene repeated itself. The Second Fleet emerged at the Eastern Command Station and reduced it to debris in 18 minutes. The Fifth Fleet destroyed the southern headquarters so quickly that the defending ships never managed to launch fighters. Every strike was precise, overwhelming, and brutally efficient. The Galactic Council's emergency meeting descended into chaos as reports flooded in. The Vecthari representative screamed accusations of war crimes. Other species watched in stunned silence as the humans demonstrated military capabilities no one had suspected they possessed. They destroyed 3 major installations in under 20 minutes each, Curator Veln said quietly, studying the tactical displays. That kind of coordination and firepower. Where did they hide this? They didn't hide it, the Polmari ambassador observed. They built it. In 3 days. While we were debating proper procedures, they were building warships. On Earth, people gathered in public squares to watch the military broadcasts. Every human world received the same transmission. After each successful strike, a simple message appeared on screens. Remember New Haven. Nobody cheered. This was not a celebration. This was justice being delivered with cold precision. Junho watched the broadcast from his temporary quarters in the military complex. Medical staff had cleared him for limited duty, and he had immediately requested transfer to a combat unit. Admiral Tajin had personally approved it, assigning him to a Marine boarding team. Now Junho sat with his new squad, watching human ships tear apart the empire that had destroyed his world. "You okay?" asked Mina, his squad leader. She was older, maybe 40, with scars on her hands and sadness in her eyes. Her husband had been a merchant captain. His ship had been passing through the New Haven system during the massacre. The Vecthari had destroyed it for fun. "No," Junho answered honestly, "but I will be. Once we finish this, we will finish it," Mina promised. All of it. The Vecthari Empire, arrogant and overconfident for centuries, finally realized they were in serious trouble. Emperor Vecthos called an emergency war council and demanded his generals explain how primitives were destroying his forces. The generals had no good answers. They had underestimated humanity. They had assumed the weak species that begged for peace would never fight back effectively. "Assemble the Grand Fleet," Vecthos ordered. "Every ship. Every commander. We will crush these humans in one decisive battle and then glass every human world until they beg for mercy." The Vecthari Grand Fleet was the pride of the Empire, 400 warships representing 2 centuries of military expansion and conquest. They gathered at the Kelmar Nebula, a strategic location that controlled access to the core systems. Emperor Vecthos himself arrived on his personal dreadnought to oversee the battle. Commander Yunji's intelligence network learned about the gathering within hours. Her surviving operatives transmitted the fleet positions, ship counts, and battle plans they had stolen from Vecthari military computers. The information reached Admiral Tajin while he was planning the next phase of operations. He studied the data carefully, then smiled for the first time since New Haven. "They've done exactly what we wanted. They've gathered their entire fleet in one location, thinking their numbers give them advantage. Sir, they outnumber us 3-1, his tactical officer pointed out. They outnumber us, Tajin agreed. But we chose the battlefield. And we've been preparing for this. He activated the fleet-wide channel. All commanders' new orders. We're going to the Kelmar Nebula, and we're bringing every ship humanity can field. The Terran warfleet assembled in deep space. Every available ship, from massive battleships to small destroyers, formed up for the coming engagement. They brought experimental weapons that had been rushed into production. They brought tactics designed specifically to counter Vectari strategies. They brought the anger of an entire species. Junho's Marine Company boarded the assault carrier Sol. Their mission was simple: board enemy ships during the battle and neutralize them from within. Yunho checked his rifle for the 10th time, his hands steady despite the fear in his gut. Around him, 200 other Marines prepared their equipment with grim determination. Listen up, Mina addressed the company. The Vectari think they're going to crush us today. They think their numbers matter. They're wrong. We're not fighting for territory or resources. We're fighting for every person who died at New Haven. We're fighting for every child who never got to grow up. And we're going to show these bastards what happens when you murder our families. The Marines shouted their agreement. Junho shouted with them, feeling something break open inside his chest. It was not hope. It was purpose. The Terran warfleet jumped into the Kelmar Nebula and found the Vectari Grand Fleet waiting. Emperor Vecthos watched the human ships arrive on his display screens and laughed. The humans had brought perhaps 150 ships. His fleet would swallow them whole. All ships attack formation, Vecthos commanded. Drive them before us. Show them the price of defiance. The Vectari fleet advanced in a massive wall, weapons charging. It was an impressive display of raw power. It was also exactly what Admiral Tajin had planned for. All ships. Execute Plan Avalanche, Tajin ordered calmly. The human fleet scattered instantly, ships diving into the nebula's radiation clouds where Vectari sensors could not track them effectively. The Vectari formation, built for overwhelming frontal assault, suddenly had no target. They fired into the clouds blindly while human ships used the nebula for cover, appearing just long enough to launch attacks before vanishing again. Deploy the swarm, Tajin said. Every human carrier opened its bays simultaneously. Thousands of small autonomous drones poured out, each one carrying enough explosive power to cripple a warship's engines. The Vectari point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but there were too many coming from too many angles. The drones struck like a plague of metal insects. Vectari engines exploded across the fleet. Ships lost power and drifted helplessly. Their perfect formation collapsed into chaos, and that was when the human capital ships emerged from the nebula, guns blazing. Junho's assault carrier raced toward a crippled Vectari cruiser, the Dominator. 30 seconds to boarding, the pilot announced. Marines grabbed their weapons and stacked up at the airlocks. Junho was in the first wave, Mina right behind him. The carrier slammed against the enemy hull and cutting torches burned through the armor. Marines poured into the breach, weapons firing. Vectari soldiers tried to form a defense, but the humans had trained for exactly this. They moved like water through the corridors, clearing each section with brutal efficiency. Junho led his fire team toward the bridge. They encountered heavy resistance near the command deck. Vectari warriors in power armor blocked the corridor, their weapons tearing chunks from the walls. 2 Marines went down screaming. Mina threw a flashbang grenade and the humans charged through the disoriented defenders. Close quarters combat was vicious and personal. Junho fired his rifle until it ran empty, then drew his combat knife. A Vectari soldier grabbed him, trying to crush his ribs. Junho drove the knife up into the gap in the alien's armor, found something vital, and twisted. The soldier dropped him and fell. Bridge ahead, Mina shouted, kicking open the final door. The Dominator's bridge was in chaos. Officers tried to restore power while damage reports flooded in. The ship's captain, a scarred veteran of a dozen campaigns, drew his sidearm when the humans burst in. Junho recognized him immediately. This was the officer whose voice had been recorded giving the order to fire on New Haven's school district. Junho had listened to that recording 100 times. He would know that voice anywhere. The captain raised his weapon, but Junho was faster. His rifle barked once and the Vectari's gun went flying. The alien fell to his knees, clutching his wounded hand. You, Junho said quietly, advancing. I know you. You gave the order. The school was full of children and you gave the order. The captain looked up at him with alien eyes. Earth changed overnight. Every news channel played Myung's transmission on repeat. People watched their screens in horror as New Haven burned. They saw the children running. They saw the Vectari soldiers. They saw everything. Within hours, millions gathered in city squares across the planet, holding candles and demanding justice. The peaceful protest turned into something harder, something cold and determined. Admiral Tajan personally led the retrieval mission to New Haven. His ships jumped into the system 3 days after the massacre. The colony was still burning when they arrived. Smoke covered everything. Tajan took a shuttle down with a medical team and a squad of Marines. They found Junho sitting in the ruins of the central plaza, surrounded by bodies he had tried to bury. The young security officer looked up with hollow eyes when the Marines approached. He did not speak. He could not speak. Tajan knelt beside him in the ash. "I'm Admiral Tajan. We're taking you home." Junho shook his head slowly. "This was my home." "Not anymore," Tajan said gently. He helped Junho to his feet. "Come with us. Earth needs to hear what happened here." They brought Junho back to Earth along with detailed scans of every atrocity. Medical teams tried to help him, but his wounds were not the kind that doctors could heal. Psychologists worked with him for days before he could tell his story without breaking down. When he finally did speak, the Terran Council recorded every word. His testimony was broadcast across every human world. Billions watched as Junho described the festival that morning. The music, the children dancing, then the sky turning dark, the fire falling from above, the Vectari soldiers moving through the ruins, killing everyone they found. His voice never rose above a whisper, but everyone heard the pain in every word. "They gave no warning," Junho said, staring at his hands. "They just started killing. I hid while my family died. I heard my son calling for me, and I hid. I'm still hiding." Admiral Tajan stood beside him, a hand on his shoulder. "You survived to tell us what happened. That took more courage than you know." Within 48 hours of Junho's testimony, Earth's entire economy shifted to war production. Every shipyard that built cargo vessels now built warships. Every factory that made farming equipment now made weapons. Every research facility focused on military technology. Universities canceled classes so engineering students could work on defense projects. The whole planet became a single vast war machine. President Soman addressed the United Nations, and her speech was transmitted to every human colony in space. She spoke calmly, but her words carried the weight of absolute resolve. For 200 years, humanity has sought peaceful cooperation with alien species. We have traded fairly. We have respected boundaries. We have honored treaties. We believed that reason and diplomacy could solve any dispute. She paused, letting the silence stretch. New Haven proved us wrong. The Vectari did not want negotiation. They wanted extermination. They murdered 15,000 innocent people, including 4,000 children. They did this without warning, without cause, without mercy. Soman's eyes hardened. Humanity will not beg for justice. We will not plead for fairness. We will take what was stolen from us. The Vectari Empire has declared war on humanity, whether they realize it or not, and humanity accepts. The reaction was immediate. Every human colony sent volunteers for the military. Young people lined up at recruitment centers in numbers not seen in centuries. Old veterans came out of retirement to train new soldiers. Engineers who had never built weapons before studied day and night to master the technology of war. Humanity had been peaceful for generations, but that peace had been hiding something dangerous. Now it was awake. Ambassador Hyeji attended one final session of the Galactic Council. The massive chamber held representatives from 40 species, all gathered to discuss the New Haven incident. The Vectari ambassador, a tall creature named Thales, dismissed the massacre as unfortunate but necessary. The humans built their colony in Vectari territory, Thales said dismissively. They were warned. They ignored us. What happened was their own fault. Hyeji stood slowly. Every eye turned to her. Her sister's face flashed through her mind. Her nieces laughing at a birthday party years ago. She pushed the memories down and spoke in a voice like ice. You were never warned. New Haven existed for 12 years. You had 12 years to object through proper channels. You had 12 years to negotiate. Instead, you waited until 15,000 people had built homes and lives, and then you murdered them all in a single day. She looked around the chamber at the other species. None of you said anything. None of you helped. You are all complicit. Murmurs of protest rose from the assembled aliens. The council chair, an ancient being called Curator Velm, tried to restore order. Ambassador Hyeji, please. We understand your anger, but we must find a peaceful solution. Peace? Hiji's laugh was bitter. Where was peace when our children died? Where was the council when we begged for help? Where were all of you? She straightened her formal jacket. Humanity withdraws from this council. We want no part of an organization that values procedure over justice. She turned to face Thalos directly. The Vecthari Empire has one standard Earth week to surrender unconditionally. You will hand over every officer involved in the New Haven massacre for trial. You will pay reparations to the families of the victims. You will formally admit guilt and apologize. Thalos laughed, a harsh chittering sound. And if we refuse? Then we will show you the same mercy you showed our children. Is that a threat? No, Hiji said calmly. It's a promise. She walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the Galactic Council erupted in arguments. Some species demanded they force humanity to negotiate. Others quietly began moving their shipping lanes away from Vecthari space. The smart ones already knew what was coming. While diplomacy collapsed, Commander Yunji led covert operations into Vecthari territory. Her team of intelligence operatives moved like ghosts through enemy space. Using stolen transport codes and falsified identification, they mapped every military base, every shipyard, every defense station. They identified command centers, supply depots, and communication relays. They found the weaknesses in the Vecthari military machine. The work was dangerous. Yunji lost 3 team members in the first week alone. They were caught infiltrating a weapons facility and executed immediately. But their deaths were not in vain. The intelligence they gathered reached Earth and became part of the battle plans taking shape in the war room. Admiral Tajin assembled his command staff in the underground military complex beneath Geneva. Holographic displays showed the Vecthari Empire in precise detail, marked with targets in red. There were hundreds of them. We hit them everywhere at once, Tajin explained to his officers. They expect us to negotiate or to attack their forward positions. We're going to do neither. We're going to cut the head off the snake. Their military is 3 times our size, one general objected. Their military is spread across 24 systems. Ours will be concentrated on specific targets. Tajin zoomed in on 3 locations. These are their primary military command stations. The 1st, 2nd, and 5th fleets will hit them simultaneously. We destroy their command structure in the opening move. That's extremely aggressive, sir. They murdered children, Tajin said flatly. Aggressive is what we're doing. Does anyone have any objections? No one spoke. They all remembered New Haven. They all remembered Junho's testimony. Aggressive was exactly what they wanted. The deadline came and went. The Vecthari never responded to humanity's ultimatum. Their emperor, a bloated creature named Vecthos, gave a speech mocking the primitive humans and their empty threats. He promised that any human ship entering Vecthari space would be destroyed immediately. President Somin watched the speech from her office. When it ended, she pressed a button on her desk. It connected directly to Admiral Tajin's flagship. Execute Operation Reckoning, she said simply. Tajin stood on the bridge of the Terran battleship Indomitable. Surrounded by 300 other warships, they had been waiting in deep space, hidden from sensors, ready for this moment. He looked at his crew, young faces and old, all wearing the same grim expression, all remembering the same burning colony. All ships, he said into the fleet-wide channel. Jump coordinates locked, weapons free. Show them what happens when you wake Earth. Space tore open as 3 separate fleets activated their jump drives simultaneously. They emerged exactly where Commander Yunji's intelligence had directed them. The Vecthari military stations never had time to raise shields. The hammer had fallen, and it would not stop until justice was done. The morning sun rose over New Haven colony, painting the wheat fields in shades of gold and amber. Daiho stood on the administration building's balcony, watching thousands of colonists gather in the central plaza for the harvest festival. Children ran between food stalls while their parents laughed and shared stories. Music drifted through the warm air. After 12 years of hard work, the colony had become a true home for 15,000 humans. Daiho smiled as he saw old grandmother Sunja teaching a group of children how to make traditional rice cakes. Near the fountain, young couples danced while a band played cheerful songs. The colony's success had exceeded every expectation. They grew enough food to trade with 3 neighboring alien species. The Kethrin bought their wheat. The Polmari loved their vegetables. Even the distant Vryn sometimes visited to purchase earth spices. In the communications center, Myung checked the morning reports. All systems showed green. The weather satellites predicted another perfect day. She pulled out a small photo from her desk drawer and smiled at it. Her daughter Hana, safe back on Earth, had just started university. Mi-young planned to visit her next month during the scheduled supply run. She tucked the photo back carefully and returned to her screens. The festival continued below. Daiho prepared to give his annual speech thanking the colonists for their dedication. He had just started walking toward the stage when the sky changed. Everyone looked up. The blue sky had turned dark as if night had suddenly fallen. But it was not night. Something massive had blocked out the sun. Junho was working his security patrol on the colony's eastern edge when his radio exploded with panicked voices. He grabbed the device. "What's happening?" "Someone report." "Ships," a voice screamed through the static. "Unknown ships in orbit." Hundreds of them. Junho's blood turned cold. He ran toward his security vehicle, already knowing something terrible was coming. New Haven had no military defenses. They were farmers and engineers, not soldiers. Their security force consisted of 20 people with small arms meant to handle wildlife, not war. In the plaza, people had stopped dancing. Everyone stared at the sky where massive dark shapes moved across the stars. Daiho's communicator buzzed frantically. He answered it with shaking hands. "Sir, we're being scanned," the colony's science officer said, his voice tight with fear. "Military-grade scanners. Multiple targeting locks. They're not responding to any hails." "Keep trying," Daiho ordered. "Tell them we're peaceful. Tell them we have children here." The science officer never got a chance to try again. The sky turned white. Plasma fire rained down from the Vekthari warships. The first blast struck the southern residential district, vaporizing 300 homes in an instant. The second hit the school. The third destroyed the medical center. The fourth, fifth, and sixth blasts came so fast they merged into one continuous roar of destruction. Junho watched in horror from 2 kilometers away as his home died. Fire consumed everything. The communications tower fell, cutting off all signals. The administration building where Daiho had stood moments ago was simply gone, replaced by a smoking crater. The plaza where people had been dancing was now a field of glass, the sand melted by the terrible heat. His radio filled with screaming. Then the screaming stopped as the bombardment intensified. Junho could not move, could not think, could not breathe. His wife worked in the medical center. His children attended the school. Both places no longer existed. Giant dropships descended through the smoke, landing near the burning ruins. Vekthari soldiers emerged, 9 feet tall and covered in black armor. They moved through the colony systematically. Any human they found, they killed. It did not matter if they were armed or unarmed, adult or child, standing or crawling. The Vekthari showed no mercy and asked no questions. Mi-young had been thrown across her communications room by the first blast. Her arm was broken and blood ran down her face, but she crawled back to her console. The main transmitter was damaged but not destroyed. With shaking hands, she rerouted power and activated the emergency beacon. She had to warn Earth. She had to tell them what was happening. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, typing with one hand while her broken arm hung uselessly. She activated every camera still functioning. She started recording everything and set it to transmit toward Earth on all frequencies. The message would take hours to arrive, but it had to be sent. Through her cracked window, Mi-young saw Vekthari soldiers entering buildings and dragging out survivors. She saw what they did to those people. She kept recording. Tears ran down her face, but her hands never stopped working. The galaxy had to see this, had to know what happened here. A Vekthari soldier kicked down her door. Mi-young looked up at the alien warrior, then back at her screen. The upload was at 70%. She needed more time. She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out Hana's photo, holding it against her chest. "I love you," she whispered to the picture. The upload reached 90%. The Vekthari raised his weapon. Mi-young closed her eyes and thought of her daughter's smile. The upload completed at 97%. It was enough. Junho had hidden in an emergency supply bunker on the colony's edge when the ground assault began. Through a small observation window, he watched the slaughter. He watched for 6 hours as the Vekthari moved through every structure, every shelter, every hiding place. He heard the screams. He heard the weapons fire. He heard the silence that followed. When darkness finally came, the Vekthari soldiers returned to their ships. They had been thorough. Smoke rose from 1,000 fires. Not a single building remained intact. 15,000 people had lived here this morning. Now only Junho remained. hiding in a bunker while his world burned. He emerged after midnight, walking through the ruins in a daze. He found bodies everywhere. His neighbors, his friends, people he had known for 12 years. The Vectari had not just attacked New Haven. They had erased it. They had murdered everyone for no reason that Junho could understand. He sat in the ashes of the plaza and wept. 18 hours after the massacre, Myung's transmission reached Earth. The Terran Council received 18 hours of footage. They watched in silent horror as New Haven died. They watched the bombardment. They watched the executions. They watched peaceful farmers and children murdered without cause or mercy. Ambassador Hiji sat in the viewing room, her face carved from stone. Her sister had lived on New Haven. Her 2 nieces had attended the school there. She watched the footage 3 times, memorizing every detail. She did not cry. She did not scream. She simply watched and remembered. Fleet Admiral Tajan arrived at the council chambers within an hour. President Soman called an emergency session. Every member of Earth's government gathered to watch the transmission. Some left the room to be sick. Others sat in stunned silence. All of them felt the same burning rage growing in their chests. "How many survivors?" President Soman asked quietly. "1," Tajan replied. "A security officer named Junho. He was in a supply bunker on the colony's edge." "The Vectari?" "They claimed the territory as theirs. They said New Haven was an illegal settlement. They refused to negotiate or apologize. Their ambassador called it necessary territorial expansion." President Somin stood and walked to the window, looking out at Earth's lights. Behind her, the council waited. The whole planet waited. Finally, she turned back to face them. "Send retrieval ships for Junho. I want him brought home." Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with cold fire. "Mobilize every fleet. Activate every reserve. Redirect every shipyard to military production. Summon all ambassadors back to Earth immediately." "Madam President," someone asked carefully, "are we going to war?" Soman looked at the frozen image on the screen behind her. It showed a Vectari soldier standing over the body of a child. "We extended our hand in friendship," she said quietly. "They answered by murdering our children. Diplomacy is over. Send a message to every human colony, every human ship, every human world. Tell them what happened at New Haven. Tell them Earth remembers. Tell them Earth is coming." She turned back to the window. "And may whatever gods the Vectari pray to have mercy on them, because we will not."